Hello, and welcome back to Off the Cuff. My name is Jared Crowley. I'm your host. I'm sitting across from my good friend and pastor, David Freck of Church of the Harvest fame, I guess you could say. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, maybe.
If you're new to Off the Cuff, if you've never seen it before, basically the idea is that we really view this as like a resource that is intended to answer some questions, create some discussions about things that you might want some clarity on that you might not have, heard him discuss on like a Sunday morning. And basically, the means that we do that by is that we take your comments, your questions, your topics that you send in, and we throw them at this guy with no preparation whatsoever. We do some sort of little random, fun little gimmick
Yep.
to kind of choose those questions. And so, are you feeling ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's
All
hope we
right.
haven't landed on this color
We
yet.
haven't had orange or red yet,
Yeah.
so let's see how that goes.
All right, we got teal again. Let's
You
spin
wanna
it one more
again?
time. Yeah.
All right, let's do it again.
There we go.
There
okay.
we are, red.
All right.
Or a form of it.
Okay. So that one is okay. This is a fun one actually. So I feel like I might have asked this before, but
Okay.
I don't think I have. But it's amazing that I haven't yet because this is just an interesting question. But what is your or do you have a favorite book or story in the Bible, and why does it speak to you in that way?
I don't know that I have a favorite story. I like several of them. And if I was to pick like a favorite book, if you just say what book of the Bible would you want to read all the time?
Sure.
If
Like
you
stranded on an island.
if you couldn't read any others,
Yeah.
I'd probably stick with the Book of John.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
if that was the case,
Uh-huh.
if it was the case of what book of the Bible gives me real, I just enjoy. I don't know, the fabric, the
Yeah.
meat, the nuance, the mystery of it. I love Hebrews,
Yeah. That's a good one.
but I wouldn't want Hebrews independent of the Old Testament
Sure.
because the Old Testament,
Yeah.
it's so replete and so interwoven with Hebrews that, if you just read Hebrews independent of everything else, it would
Yeah.
not have the
Yeah.
same scope or depth.
Right.
So that would be that for books of the Bible. That would be kind of like a favorite from those.
Yeah.
Would be favorites for me, and for those reasons,
Mm-hmm.
I love Ephesians as a letter from
Yeah.
Paul. I think that's great. Of course, Romans is always spectacular.
Yeah.
Theologically, very satisfying.
Yeah.
It's the book of Romans.
Yeah.
And then I would say Old Testament. I probably I really like Genesis.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, I do too.
And I really like First and Second Samuel. I really like those two books. So I enjoy the Psalms. I enjoy Proverbs, but I think that if you were to just ask me to read like one book in the New Testament, I'd either stick with Genesis or the Psalm or First, Second Samuel.
Okay. Yeah. You mean the Old Testament?
Old Testament, of the Old Testament. So
Yeah.
that's just personal preference. I know a lot of people would argue, well, this is better, this is better. That's
Sure.
fine.
Yeah.
It's personal preference, so it's up to me.
Yeah. Whatever speaks to you the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what was the other question? Story.
Yeah.
Stories. Well, I would say I wouldn't call it my favorite story, but it's my top. Let me give you my top three,
Okay.
three to five.
Yeah.
How's that?
I love that. Yeah.
The story of Lazarus
Okay.
is a favorite
Yeah.
for a bazillion reasons.
Yeah.
Just truly enjoy that story.
Yeah.
I love the story, and I don't like to disconnect it, but I know that it is. I like the story of David being anointed as king by Samuel.
Yeah.
I love. He was actually anointed 3 times by Samuel, but no, he wasn't. No, he was only anointed that one time by Samuel. So anyhow,
Yeah.
I love when he was anointed by Samuel. It's just a story I love, and I love
Yeah.
the story of Joseph.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love those three stories
Yeah.
as kind of just set aside,
Mm-hmm.
independent stories
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons.
Yeah. Sure.
But those would probably be my three.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Lazarus for sure, Joseph for sure, David and the anointing. I really enjoyed that story. I also
Yeah.
like the story of his. The problem with David is I kind of like his life story.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
say, well, is it a life? If I could do a life story, I'd say, well, David's life story
Yeah. Yeah.
or Joseph's life story.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
just as a life story.
Yeah. Those would be like your favorite like characters in the Bible, your favorite people in the
Character
Bible.
life story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any particular reason why, to just jump back a little bit, is there any particular reason why John is like your favorite of the Gospels, or?
Well, yeah. The reason it's my favorite is because it's highly personalized.
Yeah. Sure.
That's the reason it's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you get more personal one-on-one interactions with Jesus and just individuals.
Yeah. Right.
In the book of John than any other of the Gospels.
Yeah.
I mean, by a wide margin. Jesus and Nicodemus, Jesus and the woman at the well, Jesus and Mary, Jesus and Martha, Jesus and Lazarus, Jesus and it's just all these really unique.
Yeah.
Jesus and Peter, these very succinct, dynamic, singular events. I also like that from John 13, it's basically the last week of Jesus' life.
Right. Right.
So it's heavily weighted on that. Well, actually, you could say, yeah, let's just call it the last week of Jesus' life.
Sure.
It starts in John 13. And that's actually, John 13 is actually the last 3-4 days of Jesus.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
last day of Jesus' life and then his resurrection.
Right. Right.
So, 4 days,
Yeah.
period,
Yeah.
basically.
Super like hyper focused.
Super hyper focused
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, prayer, John 17.
Yeah.
Just these really deep dives into these very dynamic moments.
Yeah, for sure.
And,
yeah.
So I really enjoy it for those reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Outside of that, I'd say Luke would be my
Yeah.
second favorite gospel. So between John and Luke, but if you were to ask me to read just one gospel, I'd do John all day.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody that is just met Jesus to just read the
That's
book of John.
place. Yeah, for
Just
sure.
just read the book of John.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
get you going. It'll
Yeah.
get you framed and started on
Definitely.
a good personal one-on-one relational
Yeah.
connection with Jesus. So
Yeah, I definitely find that one reveals, that's like my, if I don't know what to read, I'm going there kind of book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I don't feel called in a specific direction, I'm just going to find something in John because it'll reveal Jesus's character to me in a real way easier than any other.
Yeah, it's and it gives you the I ams, right?
Yeah.
I'm the light of the world. I'm the bread of life. I'm the resurrection of life. It just gives you all these very specific ways that Jesus reveals himself, and you see all these parallels. And then, of course, the depth of John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God,
Right,
the Word
right.
was God. And so you see him in his creative divinity. It highlights Jesus as the Son of God,
Yeah.
but highly and dynamically personal.
Yeah.
So I just love the breadth and the scale of it from that perspective.
Yeah.
It's like he left it to the other ones to tell kind of all the big stories,
Uh-huh.
and he just kind of,
Yeah, sure.
because the woman at the well, that's a unique
Yep.
John story.
Right.
Nicodemus, that's a unique John story.
Yeah.
The things he says about his flesh and blood, that's a unique John statement.
Yeah.
These are things. That's why the others are called the synoptic gospels, and this one is standalone.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah.
it's very unique, and it's not trying to tell a whole general story. It's trying to tell a deeply personal one.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll ask one more thing to kind of like dive in a little bit deeper. Is there any reason why, is there anything you could point to in particular why Joseph and David's stories are why they kind of impact you in such a deep way?
I'd say for David, I find a lot of his life and struggles parallels my own.
Mm.
So I find a lot of personal association with him
Sure. Yeah.
in that way. Uh, Joseph, just the his really his character. He had just dynamic character
Yeah.
in the midst of real adversity at the deepest levels that people can experience pain.
Yeah. Sure.
Being literally betrayed by his family, sold into slavery,
Yeah.
the height of expectation. I'm getting out of here. My gifts are making room for me, and then
Yeah.
getting smashed, falsely accused.
Yeah.
When it was not even close to what his real heart was.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he remained faithful, he remained consistent, he remained integrous
Yeah.
through it all.
Right.
It's just, it's a great statement
Yeah.
to just what an incredible character he was
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and what incredible character he had.
Yeah. For sure.
So I really admire that, and I love the whole scope of kind of how his life was framed, and then how it spoke to this divine destiny and purpose, and how it was fulfilled
Yeah.
through much adversity and difficulty.
Right. Right.
So I'm inspired by it's kind of the classic, adversity
Yeah.
to splendor story.
For sure. Yeah.
Success,
Yeah.
and who doesn't like those kinds of
Yeah.
stories? And the
Yeah.
same could be said of David.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I find a lot of personal affiliation with them. Not that I'm the kind of character they are, have the kind
Sure.
of character
Yeah.
they have.
Right.
Well, I'd say I have more of the kind of character that David had than I did Joseph.
Sure. Yeah.
David was dynamically flawed,
Mm.
but he was passionately in love with Jesus.
Yeah. Right. Right.
He was sincere in his heart. He got distracted. He got off base a couple times,
Mm.
but he always wanted to do the right thing,
Yeah.
even though he messed up several times.
sure.
So I can highly relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Joseph just kept it together
Mhm.
the whole time, and so
Yeah.
I admire that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I relate to the one, I admire the other.
No, I get what you're saying, because that's how I feel about Daniel as well. Like Joseph and Daniel both are just like those. Wow, these guys.
Yeah, Daniel's
knew what
another
was
one of those
happening.
guys, man. He just maintained it. I
Yeah.
mean, how do you think about he survived 3 or 4 regime changes
Yeah.
at the upper levels of government.
Right.
That did not happen in that day and age.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't happen.
I know. Yeah.
When the new king came in, he slaughtered everybody
Yeah.
that was a part of the old regime.
Yeah.
He killed them.
Right.
It was just because he didn't want any possibility of an overthrow.
Yeah.
But there was something so dynamically powerful about this
Mm-hmm.
man that he survived, not
Yeah.
just 1, not just 2, but 3 or 4
Yeah. Yeah.
regime changes.
Right. And he's like in the cabinet of like all
Oh
those
yeah,
guys, right?
upper
Yeah.
level dude.
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just
Yeah. I know.
it's remarkable
Yeah.
to see the favor and the hand of God on that.
Right.
man.
Right.
And in this whole time, he's separated from his homeland and his destiny. He's under oppression, and yet God favors him and brings
Yeah,
him out of it. But
for sure.
a lot of it has to do with his character
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
his example. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's I'm hearing a lot of attitude and character in all of these stories and these examples.
Yeah,
But,
and I think if you don't see that in the scriptures, if you just are always looking for, God, help me, God, get me out,
yeah.
you're missing it. You're missing it.
Yeah.
That these guys found something in their relationship with God that they anchored to,
Yeah.
and it caused them to live a certain way.
Yeah. It's so good.
And the blessings of the Lord followed them. It didn't mean that it was easy.
Yeah.
None of them had it easy.
Right.
None of them
Yeah.
had it easy. But they maintained their integrity, and that's one of the great glories of Scripture, is that you get to see that people don't just survive, but they thrive in adversity and difficulty because they do it right with God.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
Yeah. For
you
sure.
know, and
For sure.
There's something to be celebrated in people that just do it right with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether they have a big name or they don't.
Yeah. And despite the flaws, to your point about David, like getting over yourself and what you're not doing and what you're not living up to and moving past it.
Yeah, he was a man after God's own heart, not because he did everything right, but because he had a heart to humble himself and repent and return to God.
Yep.
So, he relied on the mercy and the grace of God, even though there was consequences for what he did.
Yeah.
And he accepted those consequences. He took the responsibility for it, and he kept he kept returning to the Lord, returning to the Lord, returning to the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a testimony that to all of us that, we're not always going to make it through without our own failures. But
Yeah.
if we can just have a heart to humble ourselves instead of saying, I guess this just ain't for me, if stick with it, understand where your blessings are, understand where your love is, understand where your grace is, and stay there.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Stay there. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah.
It's something that's been missing in Christianity
Mm-hmm.
for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree.
And we lack character.
Mm-hmm.
We just lack character.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage people to learn from those inspirations and grow.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I appreciate your insight. It's definitely interesting looking at. That's like one of my favorite questions to ask, like a lot of people that I look up to. So that was kind of why I was like, I can't believe I haven't asked this question before. But
Cool.
I think like what you appreciate in the Bible and like the characters that really speak to you, really it helps you to get to know a person. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think it's a great conversation to have with people, and so I encourage you guys to have this similar conversations with the people in your life, and just kind of open that door of like what means something to you, what really speaks to you. So appreciate you, sir. Appreciate your insight. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for watching. Feedback, comments, questions, all that stuff, super valuable to us. So we will see you next week.
All right.